Good evening, everyone. I'll just start off by thanking WJC and the American Sephardic Federation for this really important event this evening. I think you can really take credit and be proud of the fact that every year you've held this tradition, and I think it's really something you can be very, very proud of, and thank you very much for doing this. As has been mentioned, and you'll hear many details about stories and experiences throughout the night, so I will refer a little bit to this question of the Jewish refugees from Arab states and the United Nations, and a little bit about what Israel is how Israel has tried to deal with this question. And I was having a discussion a little bit earlier here with some new friends I met, and I think there is a real distinction and a real difference between dealing with the subject here in the diaspora and dealing with it in the state of Israel. It is two very different issues, but I think we need to come together, the diaspora and Israel, and together find a way of going forward with this issue united, as was mentioned by the previous speaker. I think that I personally come from South Africa, Lithuanian heritage, not Sephardi. But I'd just like to tell you a quick short story of how Israel has tried to deal with this issue in the past. A cousin of mine came on Aliyah with me to Israel as well, from South Africa, and he applied to go study at the Technion. And he received a full scholarship, and he didn't understand why. But at the time, and this was in the early 80s, they asked, "Where are you from?" And he said, "South Africa." And they thought, Africa, North Africa, and he got a full scholarship. But I think that actually here today we are gathered to remember a painful and often overlooked chapter on history of the Jewish people, the expulsion of the Jews from the Arab lands, which actually began in earnest from 1947. And people have mentioned the New York Times here. There's an article that's quoted in many places from May the 16th. It was the headline of the New York Times in 1948. Jews in grave danger in Muslim lands. Okay, this is from 1948. 900,000 in Africa and Asia face the wrath of their foes. Just a quick quote from Lake Success, where the UN was at the time. For nearly 4 months, the United Nations has had before it an appeal for immediate and urgent consideration of the case of the Jewish populations in Arab and Muslim countries stretching from Morocco to India. My wife is from the Jewish community in Mumbai, in India. I don't know if she comes under the definitions of tonight, but I think this just shows the vast diversity of where so many Jewish communities came from. The numbers go between 850,000 and 1 million of Jewish refugees that were forcibly expelled from their homes in Arab countries, and they had to leave behind, as you all know, their possessions, their livelihoods, and most importantly, their heritage. This traumatic event, which has come to be known as the Forgotten Exodus, is a painful reminder of the persecution and displacement that the Jewish people have faced throughout history. The definition of a refugee in international law clearly applies to the Jews from the Arab lands who had a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race and religion. And some research done in the past has found actually just, I think, 2 quotes by UN High Commissioners for Refugees that have confirmed on several occasions that the UN consider Jews fleeing from persecution in Arab countries as refugees who do fall under the UNHCR mandate. And if we look at all of the relevant international, multilateral and bilateral agreements, such as UN Resolution 242, the Israel-Egypt Peace Treaty, the Madrid Conference, and others, the word refugees is used generically and includes the recognition of all Middle East refugees, Jews and Arabs alike, and this is something that we need to insist on diplomatically. The State of Israel decided only in 2014, as you know, to designate the November 30th as the annual National Day of Commemoration for Jewish refugees from Arab lands and Iran. Again, we won't go into discussion if Iran is an Arab land or not, but it was decided to add this on the official day of commemoration. And this came the day after, as you know, the partition plan in the United Nations, with the Arab countries that refused to accept the UN resolution establishing the Jewish state. I'm sorry, I'm having a technical problem here. In its decision, the State of Israel decided that to honor the resilience and determination and recognize the significant contributions they've made to the State of Israel and to Jewish communities around the world as part of this day. I would just like to read something that then President Reuven Rivlin said at the first event that took place in Israel on the 1st of December 2014. And he held this ceremony at the president's residence in Jerusalem. And he said that the State of Israel had erred, had made a mistake in its treatment of the Jews that came from the Arab countries. He claimed that they had behaved paternalistically and condescendingly towards immigrants from Arab countries. And he called for a compensation arrangement for Jews who came to Israel from the Arab lands, leaving considerable property and money behind. He also addressed the need to recognize the Jews' suffering and repair the historic injustice that was done to 1 million Jews, immigrants from Arab countries and Iran, whose history was pushed to the margins of the Zionist narrative. Over the years, refugees from the Arabian communities felt that it was the Israeli establishment itself that was denying them their place, that it was the establishment itself that was obscuring evidence of their existence from the pages of official history. It was as if they, the immigrants from Arab countries, had not walked proudly along the routes marked by the pillars of fire and smoke of our people's history. The president admitted that for years their voices were not heard and their losses not given expression, which could be explained, he added, because of the fact that terrible tragedies that happened to our people grabbed most of the attention. Here a reference to the Holocaust. Rivlin said, their voices were silenced, but the words were on their lips all the time, even when they were said in accented Hebrew, Farsi, or Arabic, languages that were considered in Israel to be the language of the enemy and a source of shame. As we reflect on this painful chapter in our history, we're reminded of the importance of promoting tolerance, understanding, and coexistence. We must work together to ensure that the rights and dignity of all people, regardless of their background or identity, are respected and protected. Our job, and part of the mission that we have at the United Nations, is to make sure that all members of the United Nations join in recognizing the historical injustices faced by Jewish refugees from Arab lands. We must work together to promote a more inclusive and equitable world where the rights and dignity of all people are respected and protected. Toda Rabah. And again, I would just like to send our wishes and hopes for all the hostages that are still remain in captivity. I think every Jewish gathering, our thoughts are with them. Thank you very much.